River and Courtney chapters. If everybody could take a seat, we will get started. We have a very busy night tonight, and we have a packed house, which is awesome because we have a great speaker. She's done a lot of preparation for the talk tonight, and I'm sure it's just going to be so informative. And then we have Elena, our lovely Elena, so make sure you stick around for Elena, who is running for school trustee. And then you're going to hear from David Parkinson about the possibility of opening a co-op school to get our children out of the school system. As you know, that's a scary place for children right now. That's a whole different subject, but we'll be touching on that. So we're going to be touching on lots of things tonight. And so we're going to start the night. We're going to get Chris just to come up and say just an opening prayer, and then we'll get into the evening.
Lord, we just thank you for everybody that's here this evening. Lord, wherever they are with you, I pray, Lord, that they would come to know you even more. Lord, lift up all the speakers, that you would just lay on their hearts what they're to say. Lord, we just ask, Lord, that all of us that are here, that we would just become more awake, more aware of what's going on. And that, Lord, that we would rally behind Elena as she runs for school district trustee. And whatever our part is in this, Lord, I pray that we would walk in it. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Okay, we're going to get started. So, first thing I'm going to do is pull up the Action4Canada website. First of all, I want to ask, who here, it's their first Action4Canada meeting? Is there anybody here? It's the first time? Awesome, welcome. That's great. Okay. So who here is from south of the border? Courtney. Hands up, Courtney people, south of the border. Okay, perfect. North of the border, Campbell River. And places in between. Campbell River wins. Yay! Woohoo! So if you are familiar with the Action4Canada website, which probably, hopefully, most of you are, they have made it a lot more user-friendly. So that's the exciting thing. And so I'm just going to read the, it's really hard to work with this microphone, but whatever, I'm used to a handheld. I'm just going to read our mission statement first of all, so that we know why we're all here. So Action4Canada is a grassroots movement reaching out to millions of Canadians and uniting our voices in opposition to the destructive policies tearing at the fabric of this nation. Through call to action campaigns, we equip citizens to take action. We are committed to protecting faith, family, and freedom. I think we need a round of applause for that. Yeah. And as I always say, even though it is a Christian-based organization, it is faith, all faiths. We welcome all faiths, and it's freedom for all faiths. Because once we take that freedom away, then all our freedoms are gone of any expression of faith. So it is important to remember that even though we're coming from a Christian base, because Canada is based on Judeo-Christian values, we do honor and respect all faiths here. So our mission is to protect Canada's rich heritage, which is founded on Judeo-Christian biblical principles, inherited through our British Commonwealth and embedded in the Magna Carta. These principles form our laws and values and are the basis of a system of governance that sets us apart from totalitarian, extremist, and communist regimes, giving Canadians the freedom to believe or not to believe without fear of persecution, oppression, and even death. And that is a strong mission statement and so applicable to what we're going through right now. And I don't need to explain. I'm sure everybody here knows what's going on in the world, and it just seems to be getting crazier and crazier every day. You wake up to new challenges every day. So, I'm not here to, all of you are very aware and very awake, and that's why you're here. So we are united on the move and devoted to making Canada great again. So as you scroll down, just scroll down, Brad, and that's Tanya Gall, who started Action4Canada. That's our mission statement. Keep going. So current issues. So on any of these, you can click on food security. You can click on it. It was working earlier. Okay, well, you can click on it and it leads you to everything that is in line with that. Okay, keep scrolling down then. So these are basically what we're working on right now. If you move over to the website directory, can you click on that? I thought that was working. Yeah, there we go. So if you go down to the website directory, everything we're working on, homepage, legal, Empower Hour, taboo tests, healthcare masks, parents, students, OG, LGBTQ, youth, World Economic Forum, business. So we cover a lot of ground in Action for Canada. We cover all the bases, okay? So the what I like is that it is a lot more user-friendly. You can find our notice of liability. I did print off a bunch of notice of liability, but they are very easy to get on the website. The one that we're particularly focusing on right now is the one in relation to what is going on in the schools and in the libraries. Diane will talk about that a little bit when she comes up. Diane is the leader from Campbell River, but as you're very aware, the schools right now are basically, schools and libraries are putting what is essentially pornographic material out to the children. It is pure pornographic. If any of you have not seen the book, It's Perfectly Normal, it is absolutely and utterly pornographic, and they are given to the children at a very young age. So that is the big fight that we have right now. We're serving notice of liability to, well, we did it to school trustees before school broke out and school principals. And I think the Campbell River group, Dan can talk about, are going to serve the libraries tomorrow, right? So big battle with the pornographic material that is going out to the children. So we're about protecting the children. All of the NOLs are there, drop the mic letter to principal, student mouse. So everything is right at your fingertips. Sexualization, youth, keep going, articles, World Economic Forum. It's a great place for those of you, if you're trying to wake up some of your relatives, to direct them to this website, because it's pretty much everything you need to know from A to B. So the other thing, that's the call to actions. If you would just go on to that, up at the top, see home, right up at the top. Nope, if you go right up to the scroll up and over. There we go. So urgent actions, you just go down to urgent actions. Just click on that. Yeah, so these are our urgent calls to action right now. And I'm not going to go through, but take some time if you want to go through the website, because there's lots to take in there. NOLs, etc. this summer. But as I said, our big focus right now is protecting the children and getting them, getting homeschooling set up as best we can. As I said earlier, we've got a school trustee running here, Elena, that we're very proud of. I was on a call today, the national call, and Chilliwack actually has 7 school trustees running, which is, yeah, it's very exciting. So obviously they have a bigger population base as well. So it's not like one area district is better than another, but it is exciting that some areas are really pushing to get people into the local government. I think they have a number running in the for councillor as well too. The only other thing before Diane comes up, and I want to get off the stage here because I want Leah to come up. Calls to action. The Empower Hour is on hold for 2 weeks. Those of you who watch the Empower Hour, it's really informative. Tanya gets some really great guests in. That's every Wednesday at 4 o'clock, and that will start up again the week after next. So Empower Hour will be back. And what else do we need to know? Oh yeah, for our local chapter, just so you're aware, we have a parent group, we have a business group, and we have an election group. So depending on what your area of interest is, it's good to join the smaller groups. The parent group obviously is to support the parents and the homeschool initiative. Business group is to try and get information out to the businesses, make them aware and empowered to say no to any mandates that may come in the fall. And then obviously our election group is to try and get people into local government and to support anybody who is currently running. Unfortunately, that will, we're getting close to the election date, which is in October. And Diane, do you want to come up and say something?
It's great to see y'all here tonight, and it's exciting to see the growth that's happening. I think a lot of us are really starting to become alert to just how bad our society is getting, especially when it comes to our children and the attack that is currently aimed at them. I hope, well, I'm going to have maybe Jason, at the end of, Jason, don't let anybody leave the building with one of these. I want you guys to understand and see what our children are being subjected to. We are talking pornographic material from preschool all the way up, and the ability for them to talk your child into transitioning into something that, of course, he or she is not. The thing is, they are manipulating our children, not the other way around. They're trying to make it sound like, the child gets to choose. Well, no, you're putting these ideas in our children, and we're not going to put up with it. We're going to stand up, and we're going to fight for our children because we love them, and we want to see a future, and we want to see grandchildren, and we want to see a prosperous Canada, right? So the law is on our side. It is illegal in Canada to show any kind of pornographic material to children. So if it's in your child's school, you can actually call the police and say, this is in my child's school, I want you to come and press charges. We don't have to do that. It's against the criminal code. So the police, they're on our side too. A lot of, they don't want this either. So, but the ability for them to be asked to do their job is maybe something that we need to do. Instead of being on the defense, it's time for us to step up and go on the offense and say enough, So anyway, so this is what's going to happen is you don't want to know about this stuff, but you know what? We need to know about it because our kids are at risk. So, okay, on Monday to Friday in Campbell River, we meet at the end of Dogwood and Jubilee. We do the walk the flag, and we have signs, and you might have seen us with the Canadian flag, and we're waving, and little by little, people are going more waving and less fingers, so that's a good thing. And also Saturday, we do just up from the roundabout on the Old Island Highway, and we have a rally there too. So you want to join us? The more visibility, the better. And it's a great way to fellowship, and we learn a little bit about each other, and and here, so there you go.
Yeah. Thanks, Diane. Yeah. Up here we have the number of events that we have going on in our valley and in, Comox Valley and Campbell River. And Diane talked about Campbell River. We have the Walk the Flag on Forbidden Plateau overpass daily. And there's a number of people here that I see. I go up there quite frequently. Friday we have a barbecue, which is awesome. And it's amazing how many more people are honking and giving us thumbs up than the opposite. So I would encourage you to come up on the Forbidden Plateau overpass 7 days a week, right, Grace? Is it 7 days a week it's there? 7 days, so 4 o'clock, and then Friday there is a barbecue. So we support that. We get our flags going. We get signs going. We have the Comox Valley meeting. The next one is September 12th, and we meet in Dove Creek Hall, and then we're back here the end of September for the combined group. It is really great to get, and that's what a lot of our groups across Canada are doing actually, is they're combining, and not all the time, but they're getting together if they're geographically close. Like the Vancouver chapter is going to be going out to Chilliwack and helping support them with all the trustees that are running. So it's about collaboration. It's about creating community. The big thing for what Action4Canada does, it's the 3 E's. We equip, we empower, and we educate. And that's so important right now, is educating Canadians. It's equipping them so that they know what to do and they know their rights. Actually, those of you who, has anybody started to travel yet across the border and had any problems? Anybody been traveling across the border? Because I've heard lots of great stories of people just saying, no, we will not comply, and I know who was. Murray's here, Murray and Nolene, they're here, right? And they had no problems getting across the border. So Tanya did a full Empower Hour on knowing your rights, traveling in and out of Canada, and so please go back and look at the Empower Hours. Even though it's a break for 2 weeks, there's lots of great information, but especially those of you who have been sitting around for 2 years and are ready to get on the road, and are scared. What do we do with this crazy app, whatever it's called? I don't even want to know what is it called? ArriveCan app. Anyway, you can't say no. So know your rights. So equip, educate, empower. That's what we do. That's what we do best, because it's amazing how many people don't know their rights, and it's so important to be educated. Mandates are not laws. They've been trying to shove mandates down our throats for 2 years now, and they are not laws. And if they start bringing them back in the fall. The other thing that is really super encouraging is Ron was speaking today. He has been reaching out to pastors across Canada, and so many more are now coming on board and saying, no, if it comes to shutting down churches again, they will not comply. So that is a huge win. Yeah. And they said that they will even walk away from their associations if that's what it comes to, or they will walk away from their church buildings, but they will not comply and they will not shut down. I heard today that they are on a crazy ride to try and get everything shoved through. 2022 is the year, and if they don't get it through in 2022, they have to aim for 2030. So if we keep holding the line and keep saying no and just ride it out till the 2022, the end of 2022, maybe we're going to put a big dent in their plans, whatever, right? That's the plan. So keep saying no, do not comply. Okay, so the only other thing is we will pass around if anybody is new tonight, I'd love to know your email address so you can get plugged into the local stuff. So please sign up if you're not getting our emails, whether you're Courtney or Campbell River, we'll make sure that you get on the correct address list. The other thing, if you like our merch, our Action4Canada merchandise, please go check it out. Sandy's in the back. She's also selling some Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Actually, and there are a few signed personally by Brian Peckford. So they will be a collector's item. I talked to, Brian was at a picnic in Parksville last weekend at an Action4Canada picnic, and he is still alive and well and fighting for Canada. We talked a little bit about his court case. He's very confident that they're trying to, of course, throw it out of court because they're saying, oh, well, the travel mandates have dropped. No big deal. And he said, no, we are holding the line. We will keep fighting. And he is very confident that they will have a win. So, yeah, keep rooting and praying for Brian Peckford. You know, these Action4Canada, myself and my husband were traveling up through Merritt a couple of weeks ago, and I just went into a Starbucks in Merritt. Everybody goes to grab a Starbucks in Merritt. What else do? You pick up a coffee, right? Or you stay the night. Anyway, I went into a Starbucks, and I had this T-shirt on, and this lady came up to me, and she said, oh, well, you're a freedom fighter, aren't you? And I said, yes. And we kind of we winked at each other. So it's cool to have this stuff out. It does draw attention and conversations, so, you know, wear it proudly, right? Okay, so I'm going to pass it over because that's enough about me, and I know most of you are here most of you are here because you want to hear Leah. So if you saw, I'll just give a brief bio about Leah. So this is, the presentation is Learn How Powerful Local Wild Foods and Medicinal Plants Could Save Your Life and Where to Find Them. So Leah actually goes to our church. She's in our congregation, and she has had a lifelong interest in nutrition and herbology and has been gardening since the age of 7. She spent 25 years working as a dietitian in the system and now is grateful to be back outdoors planting and digging things up and enjoying many different foods and teas grown in her garden or sourced from around the world. So it's going to be a great presentation. Leah and her husband Greg have an amazing farm in Merville. We've been out there, can I share little bunnies running around and chickens, and they have an amazing vegetable farm, and You know, some of you may have seen Leah singing. She also is a wonderful artist, and yeah, she is. She wrote a great song. She's got a couple of great songs. The Freedom Song, I wish she could do that tonight, but there's not going to be time. And also a song, Hold the Line, that sort of brings me to tears every time I hear it sung. So she's a wonderful, brave freedom fighter, as being tremendously gifted and in other areas. So we're so proud of Leah, and thank you for coming, and it's going to be a great presentation. And get ready to take notes.
Thank you for that intro. Can I just have a round of applause for these two amazing ladies who are doing so much for your freedoms? And I know there's a lot of people, but I'm just astounded at the energy and the love and the dedication that these two ladies are putting in. So thank you for inviting me back. We do have slides, and we are going to be live streaming this. So if you run out of pencil, lead, or paper, you can review later. So as we approach an economic meltdown, as we approach totalitarian rule, it's not a fun subject. But to ease the burden a little bit, I want to teach you some really cool stuff tonight. How many people here are gardeners? Lots of you. That's awesome. Much higher than in the city it would be. How many people are knowledgeable about herbs? Okay. What about wild foods? Less. Okay. So I love it. You guys are some passionate people here. There's a million things I could teach you, but I don't have that kind of time. So what we're going to do is going to give you a broad view, and hopefully get you really excited about the possibilities out there. Can we get the first slide up? Okay. So here's our agenda. And you know what? I do have to put my glasses on. I was hoping I didn't have to, but I do. So. So I want to talk about the difference between herbs and medicine. And one of the worst approaches you can take to herbs is to thinking they're like medicine. They have medicinal qualities, but you've got to leave the medical model at the door. There's a few exceptions I'll talk about, but herbs are not medicine, but they are medicinal. Does that make sense? Because our thing is, oh, I have this thing wrong with me, give me a pill. I have this thing wrong with me, give me a pill. And the pills that we're given often make more things wrong with me, and then you end up treating the symptoms. So one of the differences that, I'm not there yet, hang on a sec. All right, so we're going to talk about herbs versus medicine. We're going to talk about life-saving common herbs. We're going to talk about how to grow and preserve your herbs, what part of the plant to use, when to harvest. Yeah, that's nice. Okay. I want to talk about medicinal plants that are actually probably growing in your backyard, and I want to talk a little bit about foraging for food. And as I was thinking about what to talk about, there's a scripture that has always fascinated me. In Genesis 1:29, then God said, I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it, they will be yours for food. And you really got to step back from that and go, holy moly, that's a lot of plants. And when you think about the plants that you eat, there's like broccoli, and you could list like maybe 10 plants you might eat on a regular basis. At the turn of the last century, so 1900s, there was literally hundreds of varieties of apples. But now there's like 5 that we eat, right? Because it all has to do with shelf life and transportation and ease of whatever, growing them, right? So we have lost. We talk about species dying out. We have lost so much diversity in our plant life. But the really good news is it's right out there still. And so we just need to re-find it. Okay, so okay, I'll talk to that later. Okay, so I want to give you a couple references too. Let's talk about herbs versus medicine. So we talked a little bit about the fact that they are not medicine, but they're medicinal. And what I mean is this. When you take an herb, like let's take oregano, and what a pharmaceutical company would do, or they would go into the Amazon jungle and they would find some herb that the natives, use for longevity, and they would try to figure out what the active component of that herb is. And then they would synthesize, they would try to recreate it in the lab. Or if they couldn't do that, they would just try to purify it. So the way the medicine works is they try to get one component and say, okay, take this. For example, aspirin, we know it comes from willow bark, right? So they take the willow bark and they purify it down to one component. Now, there's some positives with that, because they can say, well, this is a 50 milligram tablet. Take 2 of these, every day. But the negative in that, or the opposite of that, is an herb is complex. So where medicine is, they've tried to simplify it, herbs are complex. And so the medical argument against that is, look, we don't know what's in it. We don't know all those other components, what they do. And it's also really interesting that, people used to harvest herbs by the light of the moon. Why is that? Because the strength of the herb goes up and down, depending on spring, summer, fall, depending whether it's the root or the leaf or the stem. It's actually quite complicated. And I don't want to turn anybody off by saying that. It's not that complicated. But just to let you know, so that's the arguments against herbs, that the scientists and the medical professionals say, we're going to take this thing that's good, and we're going to make it better. Right? But when I show you some of the herbs later, I'm going to talk to you about, you go, wow, it does this and this and this and this and this, and there might be 20 things that it treats. And again, the medical establishment will go, well, that can't be. How can you say that's blasphemy? How can you say it treats this and this at the same time? Well, because it's complex and because it's an herb. It has not been solidified or purified into one thing. So, I really do need these glasses. So the negative with herbs is that they are variable dose. An oregano from Diane's garden, whatever her dog didn't eat, is going to be different than mine slightly because of what's in the soil. Because but that's okay. The other negative about herbs is there's very few studies done on them. And the reason for this is because pharmaceutical companies cannot make money off them. They cannot patent something that's just grows in your garden. That's why they have to take it and change it and modify it, and then they can patent it. So there's lots and lots and lots and lots of studies done on drugs, but the problem is, who does the studies? The pharmaceutical companies. And do we trust them? No, we don't. But the government does. So a pharmaceutical company would go, okay, we got this new drug, we did all these studies, it's great, it's safe and effective, boom, let's go, right? Whereas an herb, which has been in use maybe for thousands of years, there's not that many studies. And so it's harder to say, yeah, but, right? From my experience, right? So that's one of the problems that we face. We're going to talk about... Okay, the other positive with medicine, if it is a positive, is always available. You got a headache, you want an aspirin, you go to the store, it's there. Whereas you want willow bark, that's a little harder, right? So there's definitely challenges when you're trying to live off the land or when you're trying to treat yourself medicinally with herbs. But once you get comfortable with them, it's not that hard to overcome. Okay, I want to highlight, if you want to go to the next slide. I've got 2 books I'm going to be leaning heavily on. And so if you have a survival library, which I highly recommend, the first book, do you want to go for the next slide? Yeah. So this is the foraging one. And the really cool thing is there's 120 things in here. So that's how rich and diverse, like you look out there, and you see fir trees, right? That's all you see. You don't see papayas and mangoes and things hanging on the trees, so you think there's no food out there. But there is. So this one's all about foraging, and that is Pacific Northwest Foraging by Douglas Dewar, D-E-U-R. And this next one, if you want to go to the next slide, Chris, is Pacific Northwest Medicinal Plants. And again, there's 120 wild plants in there that are medicinal. I'm not going to copy them all, so you can breathe a sigh of relief, but I'm going to give you a map which should help you. So, and there's some things are in both books. Like some plants are medicinal and they're also food. I would argue all plants are medicinal and food, but it's shocking and surprising when you realize cucumbers. We read something on cucumbers the other day, and actually I've got it on the fridge. It's so profound how good cucumbers are for you. It'll blow your mind. Anyway, highly recommend these books. Of course, you can get them on Amazon. It might be really cool if you guys band together and go to the local bookstore and you order 50 copies or something, because then you get a really good price, I hope, and you'll get the books. Okay, so moving on. Oh yeah, the third reference I want to give you is a local herbal company called Ravensong Herbals. And the way I found this was really quite fun. One morning I woke up and I heard Holy Spirit just saying to me, Bethany, Bethany, Bethany. And I'm like, what's a betony, right? But something in my spirit, I just knew it was an herb. I just didn't know what it was. So I started looking it up, and then I found it. So betony was an herb that used to be used a lot. They used to say, sell everything you have and buy betony. That's how much betony as an herb was valued. And it kind of fell out of favor, but so I thought, okay, well, I guess I'll get myself some betony. So I started looking, you could go worldwide, but I went, betony by Canada. And so this website came up, and I was just thrilled. They had all these amazing herbs, and I'm an herb geek, so I was all excited about a whole bunch. But I went to go, well, where's it coming from? It's Black Creek. So I was pretty excited. This is one of the best sites you're going to find for really cool herbs. Highly recommend them. And you can't go visit. They'll just mail them to you. Amazing, amazing. So if you want to learn about herbs, go to ravensongherbals.com and just look something up and go, oh, that's cool, because they've done their homework. They've broken it down by, the benefits and where to get them and that sort of thing. Okay, so quickly, as a dietitian, I saw this for years. So next slide. I just want to talk about man's way. Here's what we've sort of given into, and that is convenience. Our taste buds are really focused on fat, sugar, and salt. That's why you crave it. And fat, sugar, and salt are a survival thing. That's why you want them. But traditionally, in our traditional diet, we didn't get as much as we did. Junk food is everywhere. It's omnipresent, just like the medical stuff. It's highly addictive. And once you understand that, it's like the cigarettes. They spend billions of dollars a year making the cigarettes more addictive. It's the same with the food, the colorings, the stylings, the crunchiness, whatever and what they're putting in there. It's important to understand, like, if you said to me, here, drink this poison, I'd go, no, no, thank you. But it's as much of what they leave out as what they put in. So you might be buying Crunchy Fruit Loop, Sugar Pop Blast, and there's stuff in there that's bad for you, right? But it's the stuff that's not in there that harms your health because you need it. And this is just a slight divergence into dietetics. But for example, if you have a heart attack, one of the first things they do is they give you magnesium. Why? Because there's something like over 500,000 heart attacks every year that are caused by a lack of magnesium. Well, where do you find magnesium? It's because all the processing that they do, they take the magnesium out of our food. Okay, so it's the same with herbs versus medicines. You're looking at the richness of the plant as opposed to this other thing over here that's had everything taken out of it. Does that make sense? Okay. Right, we've talked about, okay, so you're eating all this bad food and you have a condition that needs to be treated. They give you the medicine that treats that, and then they give you the medicine that treats that side effect, and then they give you the medicine that treats that side effect, right? So it all comes down to what we eat every day, and one piece of cake isn't going to throw you, but over time it adds up and it does tremendous damage to your body. Okay, so I want to talk about God's Pharmacy. Can you go to the next slide, please, Chris? I want to talk to you about a plant that you might know. It's probably in your backyard, and I just want to talk to you about one example of the richness of the plants that are right outside your door. So this particular one, you can use the root. It's a digestive bitter. So we like sweet, right? But digestive bitters actually help your stomach produce more appropriate acid and so forth, so you can actually break down your foods and so forth. So this one is particularly good at that. It increases bile, it increases hydrochloric acid in the stomach, which tends to decrease as we get older. It's a good source of iron. It contains inulin. Inulin's a prebiotic, and what it does is it feeds the bacteria in your system. So it's like probiotics are good. Prebiotics is even better because it comes before that. It increases absorption of minerals and supports your immune system. It cleans the liver to reduce the hepatic congestion and inflammation. It prevents gallstones. It relieves inflamed bile ducts. It helps with hepatitis, cirrhosis of the liver. It cleans toxins from the blood and liver. So that's just the root of this one plant. And again, it does 25 things that medicine would say you have to take 25 different medicines for. Okay, on to the next slide. I want to talk about the leaves. They're diuretic. They reduce swelling in the legs, ankles, and feet. When you take a diuretic, it also depletes potassium, like if you take the medicine. But when you take it in plant form, it doesn't do that. It actually contributes to your potassium. And you can add the leaves to salads, soups, or raw to stimulate digestion, get lots of vitamins and minerals like vitamin A, vitamin C, potassium, and calcium. The sap from the flower dissolves warts. Just ponder that for a moment. The flowers, you can eat them. They can be made into wine. You can make them into fritters. They're important for the bees. And it's a weed. So do we know what that is? Yeah, I gave you a little bit of a clue there. But, everybody knows that you can eat dandelions. Who eats dandelions here? Oh, I'm impressed. Okay. So that's just one example. I want you to be really, really excited about dandelions, and don't just know that you can eat them. Actually eat them. Actually delve into it. You can make coffee out of the roots. And in fact, Greg and I were talking about this today, that the reason we have, this is not native to North America. Dandelions were brought by the settlers, 400 years ago, because what other crops multiplies by, tens of thousands? They brought it as a food crop. So what we see as a weed and we put deadly poisons on, the people who came to this country from Europe saw it as a life-giving plant. And indeed it is. And you know that any time of the year almost you can find dandelions, right? Okay, so that's just one example. I have a lot, but I just wanted to ground you in something that's really simple, really obvious, to understand the bounty that we live with. So I want to start simple. We're going to get to foraging in a second, but I want to start simply with saying, who has herbs in their garden at home? Okay, is there anybody who doesn't have herbs right now? Just a few of you, okay. And I know some of you may live in patio homes or in apartments. You might have a little tiny balcony. You can grow herbs. All right, so I just highlighted a few of them. Sorry, next slide, Chris. Rosemary, oregano, chives, garlic, sage, thyme, basil, parsley. These are really, really, really common herbs. And if you like even 3 of them, I want to encourage you to eat them. I want you to encourage them. So a minute ago, we talked about the fact that herbs are not medicine. We don't take don't take 2 leaves and call me in the morning. It's preventative. So you take these herbs every day. I'm going to talk about oregano in just a second. All of these herbs are good. There's nothing bad about them. So they're gentle. They will save your life in the sense that they are life-giving every single day. Most of these herbs are antiviral. Some of them are anti-cancer, antifungal, antibacterial. Those are huge. And they're all just quietly sitting there. The thyme that's on your garden path, the parsley that's in your fridge, they're unbelievably good for you. Cilantro is one that actually is one of the few plants that takes out heavy metals out of your system. It actually extracts heavy metals. So you should eat more cilantro. So what I'm going to challenge you to do is put the salt down and just add more herbs to your palate. And you might go, oh, I hate rosemary. Well, okay, fine, try oregano. Or try tarragon, try something different. And start putting them into your life, and they will help lower your blood pressure. Like, there's all kinds of incredible things. It's a thing you do every day, just like you might drink, or you might eat bread every day, or you might drink orange juice, whatever it is you do. It's something you do every day is add herbs to everything. Add herbs to eggs, add herbs to stews, add herbs to sandwiches. Like, get excited. These things are antiviral, they're life-giving, and we just don't even bother, So I really want you to get excited about the herbs you already have in your garden. Also, a lot of herbs grow like weeds. Yes? Good question. So he's asking, what about the ones in the grocery store? I don't know where they come from. I mean, there is some organic stuff. The thing is, other than basil and maybe cilantro, herbs are crazy easy to grow. You can grow them inside often. So get yourself a pot and just put it on your front porch. I mean, you can. They're still for sale at the stores now. So just get yourself some. I don't know where all the herbs come from, so I can't answer that. Although it is an interesting point, and I was sharing this with someone earlier, that say you go out and I tell you this particular plant is really medicinal and it grows at the side of the ditch, right? Often we'll take a wild plant and we'll put it into our garden. And we'll feed it lots of nutrition and stuff, and it grows twice as tall, and it loses its medicinal value. Because where the medicine comes, you think about rosemary. Rosemary lives on the shores of the Mediterranean, and it's stressed. It's hot, there's no water, and so it's part of the environment it grows in makes it more medicinal. So what I do, and I've started doing at our place, is I go out and I forage and I find the things I want. Like I brought a whole bunch of goldenrod home the other day, and I intend to plant them, I really will. But I'm going to create a spot in our yard where they're stressed, just like they would be in a ditch, and so that it will have the same medicinal value. I didn't answer your question, but it's very interesting, hey? Yeah. That would be your gut, wouldn't it? Like, and also when you're growing hydroponically or whatever, and I don't pretend to be totally knowledgeable about hydroponics, but what goes into your plant is dependent on what's in the solution, right? So if they've decided that these 3 things are in the solution, that's what's going to go in your plant. And that's why we got so whacked out on what are those things called? Fertilizers. Because after the war ended in 1945, they were making all these things to make bombs. I don't know if you know this story. At the end of the war, they had all these stockpiles of potassium, nitrogen, and phosphorus, NPK. But then they realized that's what plants need to grow. So they took those same 3 components and they farmed them out as fertilizer. And so now they grow all our plants using those 3 things. And that's why there's less iron, less selenium, less molybdenum, because they're just not growing in those things. So that's my gut on hydroponics. Hydroponics is better than nothing, but as you point out too, they're not getting the sunshine. And often when they don't get the sunshine, they don't develop the same kind of nutrient profile. So it's a very good point. Okay, I want to talk about oregano. How many of you have ever used oil of oregano? Okay, good. All right. That's fantastic. So that's the only one I'll say you could use oil of oregano like a medicine. Why? Because it's an oil that they've what's the word? I'm struggling for words tonight. They've purified it a little bit. You can use it for actually there's a whole list there. So bacterial infection, really huge. You can put it on fungal infections. You can use it to fight parasites, viruses, inflammation, tumors, allergies, and candida. These are huge problems, all these things, and oil of oregano does that. So I highly recommend you have that in your medicine cupboard. They used to sell it really inexpensively at Costco, like a big one. Highly recommend you have that. If that's the only thing you get that. If you're putting it on topically, you might want to put a carrier oil in it, like a coconut oil or something, because it can burn. But that's huge. So that's the only one that I would recommend using like a medicine. Okay, next slide, please. How many people grow their own tea? A few, okay. It's not that hard. Tea, of course, normal tea is grown in other places in the world, but there's many teas right around you, and we're going to touch a few of them tonight. The simplest ones are your mint, your chamomile, your lemon balm, and your calendula. And again, I'm just really wanting to impress on you things you already know, so I don't overwhelm you, but mint is an incredible digestive. So if you're having any issues with your stomach, mint is amazing. Chamomile is relaxing. Lemon balm, surprisingly, Oh, I'm missing a slide. And I can't blame you? Rats. Okay, hang on. Okay, that's fine. And calendula. Has anybody ever grown calendula before? Calendula is one of the coolest flowers. It's called a pot herb, which means that it's kind of like marigold. You know, people used to eat them. But those orange flowers, like I bake them into muffin, you'll find if you go to the drugstore, look up calendula. It's in everything, all the skincare creams and stuff like that. Incredibly good for you, incredibly easy to grow. The bees love it, and it's protective for your garden as well. So those 4, mint, chamomile, lemon balm, and calendula, amazingly simple to grow. Amazingly, it's incredible for anxiety, all kinds of different things you can find in those things. Now, some people go, but I don't know what to do with it. You cut them and you hang them by their feet. That's it. You ask Greg about our basement. You cut them and you hang them by your feet, or their feet, until they're dry, and then you put them in a bag. It's that simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. When you're looking at different types of herbs and medicinals, there's many different ways to treat them. One is in a tea, and that's my favorite because it's so darn easy. Other ways, you can dry it out and use it in a salve, like an ointment. Other ways are that you can use it in a tincture. You know, say you put it in alcohol and then it becomes like something you do in a dropper. And there's other things like poultices, which I won't go into in detail, but there's many different ways to use your herbs. Okay, now we can go to that slide. Now, the drawback, and this is where medicine versus herbs gets a bit challenging. The drawback is you have to harvest them. You have to know what they look like in the spring. You have to know what they look like in the fall. You have to know what they look like at different stages in order to harvest them. So when you're talking about foraging in the wilderness, the spring is the best time for green leaves and shoots. They come up before your garden has food in it, and so it's something to get yourself familiar with. Even those horrible things that come up in the ditches and they're so invasive. You can eat them in the spring, so it's kind of like my payback. It's like, fine, you're here, I'm going to eat you. Even things like skunk cabbage that you wouldn't want to eat. Even things like, well, there's many that we can talk about later, but spring is a good time. You can eat some ferns, not all of them. So I want you to become really knowledgeable about those things, but do it in the spring. Like right now we're coming into fall. So in the summertime, you're harvesting leaves, you're harvesting flowers, you're harvesting stems, right? They call it the aerial parts. Again, you chop it, hang it by its feet. I love summertime. That's what I do. In the fall, all that stuff dies down. But that's when the roots are harvestable. So if you know you want a particular plant, you want its root, you wait until the fall. And there's the tricky part, because you got to know where it is, right? You got to recognize what it looks like, when it's all brown and shriveled, right? So that's why I anytime you go for a walk, anytime you're in the fields, just look around you. And I'm going to show you some plants I want you to look for. And then you get to know what they look for. You go, okay, that was the goldenrod patch. It doesn't look like that in spring, but it looks gorgeous now. Does everybody know what goldenrod is? Not so many. Okay, I'm going to show you. Goldenrod's amazing. Okay, so that's the thing about herbs, where it's less convenient. You have to follow them, and you have to know what time of year it is. Okay, next slide, please. The next thing is identification. And I have to confess, one thing I have not done is mushrooms, because they frighten me, because you don't want to make a mistake with mushrooms. There's not that many poison plants out there. Mushrooms is a different thing. Okay, so I want to talk about two things. One is goldenrod, and one is tansy. And so when you leave here tonight, oh no. Oh, shoot, so they didn't transfer over. Dang. Okay, work with me. When you go home tonight, you probably won't see them, but tomorrow, take a look at the ditches. There's two beautiful plants growing right now. One is goldenrod, one is tansy. You might also see some St. John's wort. Goldenrod is tall and beautiful, and it's got this really bright yellow, like kind of this color. Beautiful, beautiful, bright yellow flower. And I'm going to talk to you about what it's good for. The other one is tansy, and it is everywhere. And it's got more like circular flowers. Does that make sense? When you look at them, they're circular in bunches. I can leave this presentation up here later if you guys want to come look. Goldenrod is incredibly good for you, and I'm going to explain why in just a moment. Tansy is poisonous. So when you're looking, you want to find, and they bloom at the same time, in the same ditch, and they're exactly the same color. But they're a dramatically different shape. There you go. Yeah, you can look it up on your phone. There you go. Okay. I want to talk to you about the benefits of goldenrod, because it is literally everywhere. When I was putting notes together for this presentation, I did two things. I looked and saw what was in my garden. I looked and saw what was in my backyard, just in the field, and I looked in the ditches outside my house. That's all I did, because I wanted to show you things that are growing right where you are that you can just learn to harvest. So goldenrod amazingly reduces or takes away waste and toxins. It benefits seasonal allergies. It helps with sore throat. It helps with nose congestion. So a lot of these things actually treat flus and inflammations and lung issues. It expels mucus. It treats the flu. It relieves fever. It's a diuretic, which means it takes extra water out of you. It supports the kidneys and the bladder. It prevents urinary tract infections. It improves your gums and your oral health. It treats wounds. So if you have goldenrod in an essential oil, you can put that on burns, and it treats the wounds. It relieves muscle aches. So again, if you've got goldenrod in some essential oil, you can rub it on your back, and it's going to help your muscle aches. It helps with asthma, fungal infections, arthritis, diabetes, heart health, and digestive health. So if you only know that one plant, you're styling, right? So I really encourage you. I'm going to keep giving you a ton of information tonight, but I want you to walk away going, okay, I can do those three things. I can find some goldenrod. And when you're looking these things up, like before you go out and harvest stuff, you think about, just look it up on the net. There's all kinds of information. there's a particular time to harvest. So right now, it's getting past that time, but you can harvest the leaves before the flowers really come up too much, and you can use it, the flowers you can use for dyes if you want to dye wool and stuff like that. So just look at when to harvest, and if you do nothing else this year, just get to know them, right? Because you'll know them next year. So I just, again, make tea out of the leaves and the flowers. I just hung them to dry. You probably don't have the next slide then, hey? I'm just going to keep going because I know we have time issues here. On this slide, which I labored over, there's 4 beautiful flowers, and they're all white, and they all bloom in the fields, and they're all amazing. So the first one I'm going to talk about is, oh, there it is. Okay, go one more. Okay, there's golden. Okay, back. Okay, go back. Yeah, okay. So can you see the difference between goldenrod and tansy? Goldenrod is long and beautiful. Tansy is really cool looking, actually. Very distinctive. Okay? And it's poisonous. Now, it is an herb. In past times, people have used this stuff with various outcomes. One thing is really good at repelling ants. So if you happen to have some tansy in your backyard, you can, put it on the ant trails or whatever. They hate it. Very strong smelling. The other thing is if you're gardening and you have no room, deer don't eat and rabbits tend to not eat strong smelling things. So you can plant most of your herbs, not parsley or basil, but most of your herbs can be grown outside a deer fence. So if you don't have room or you have lots of deer, don't worry about it. Okay, moving on. The next slide. So we moved here 7 years ago. And one thing we found is Greg started suffering from some pretty severe seasonal allergies. Really unpleasant, like hay fever and just running. He's a lovely man, but when he gets seasonal allergies, it's not pretty. Yeah, Hawaii, no. So I started, me being me, I started looking, okay, what's going to help this man that I love so much? And I just bought this book, and I opened it up, so I looked, seasonal allergies. And what came up was oxeye daisy. Now, you know this to be a weed, right? It grows friggin' everywhere, and it's invasive. But the really interesting thing is, it blooms at exactly the same time that he's having his seasonal allergies. And that's the beauty of how this whole system works. When you need it, it's there, right? So it hasn't totally cured you, but we found that we went out and we harvested the stuff, and it actually doesn't taste bad. We just stuffing daisy heads into a pitcher. Poor man, he drinks everything I give him. It's really good. It tastes really good. So try some. Like next year, it's not blooming right now, but try some. Okay, the next one is yarrow. Actually, let me just make sure I didn't miss anything. So the oxeye daisy, it decreases inflammation, it decreases secretions from lungs, your sinuses, your stomach, seasonal allergies, stomach irritation, ulcers, and yeast infections. It's a very, very powerful flower. And we drink it in the winter, too, because it's just a healthy thing, and it actually tastes quite good. Okay, the next one is yarrow. Sorry. Also, if you put it externally, it stops bleeding. It heals fungal infections, ringworm, athlete's foot, etc. So again, they're so powerful, and you don't need 25 different medicines, right? Now, yarrow is one of those things, also a super, super, super weed, if you want to call it that, and it's an abundant. That's what I love about this, so abundant. Again, it's one that stops bleeding. It moves stagnant blood, so if you've got a lot of stagnation in your body, it prevents infections, it relieves pain in wounded areas. And it was used in battle for thousands of years. If you got wounded in the field, you do what you call a spit poultice. You basically take some yarrow leaves, you chew them up, and you put them on the wound, and it staunches the blood. So it's an incredible herb to know about. Also grows as a weed. If you're harvesting it, they got teeny, teeny, tiny little flowers. They're yellow, so you want to ideally harvest it before they go brown. And it can stay looking like that for a lot of months. But anyway. Whatever, if you're injured in the field, just chew the leaves and you're good. But you can take the whole flower. Again, we just make tea out of it. You can make a tea out of the oxeye daisy and the yarrow. You could add a bit of honey to make it taste better. Now, the other one that's blooming right now is Queen Anne's lace. It is everywhere. When you look in the ditches, what's in the ditches is Queen Anne's lace. The interesting thing, the seeds have been used as actually an abortifacient for thousands of years, but The interesting thing about Queen Anne's lace is it's actually a relation of the carrot. So if you pull up a Queen Anne's lace, you're going to smell the carrotness of it. But by the time you see the flowers, it tastes disgusting. So that's where you have to know where the Queen Anne's lace is and harvest it before it blooms. But again, just get to know it, get to see what it looks like. And it's one of those things you could eat now if you needed to, but it would taste disgusting. Just saying. Okay, the last one is one of my favorites. It's called Pearly Everlasting. Yeah, you can see that pretty well, hey? Also helps with respiration and digestive issues. It decreases the yuckiness in your mucous membranes, the swelling and inflammation, lung and stomach irritation. It's another one I mix with the oxeye daisy. Tastes great. Like, it's truly great. It doesn't taste anything weird. It's just really nice. So those like you can also drink tea from fireweed. There's just amazing, amazing things. But those are the ones you're going to find in your fields every year out here. Oh, yeah. Very good question. So she's asking, the ones that grow at the side of the road, don't you worry about the car traffic and the fumes? Absolutely. And so the nice thing is we no longer have leaded gas. Like 20 years ago, we still had all the leaded gas, and I absolutely would not harvest from the side of the road. The other issue is some communities spray that stuff, like they want to keep it down. I don't think they do that here. I should probably check before I say that. But because they're growing and they look good, I don't imagine they're spraying. But if you're, like, I wouldn't take it maybe off 19A, but I would take it off, the back roads, literally back road or whether, Howard Road where we live, less traffic. Or fields. They go for disturbed places. So anywhere where someone's cut down trees, these are the ones that come in. And again, they're really potent, and they're good when they're stressed, which means that they don't need that much rain. Okay, yeah. So self-heal, you've probably seen this one too. It's a little teeny tiny plant. It almost looks like a miniature lavender. I'm just going to read this to you. It's so amazing. So it also is a wound healer. This is another one you could use as a poultice. Decreases bleeding and inflammation. It increases skin cell regeneration, which is amazing. There's not many things that increase your skin cell regeneration, and it draws out infection. So it's an amazing little plant. If you take it as a tea, it reduces fever, it reduces infections, it relieves lymphatic stagnation. So we have lymph glands in our body, and it's when they get stagnated, that's when you have problems, to get into cancerous things. So moving the lymph glands is really important. And there's very few things that do it, although jumping on a trampoline does too. But that's why this little plant is so important. Decreases high blood pressure. And if you have inflammation of your gums or mouth, you can just take the tea and use it as a gargle. It's that powerful. And unlike most, when you gargle with the mouthwashes that most people use, they're full of alcohol, and they actually dry out the gums, whereas something like this is actually life-giving. And you can even use it on your eyes for conjunctivitis. So again, it's an incredibly powerful little plant. It's like this big, and it's in bloom right now, so you can go look. It's probably in your backyard. You probably mowed it the other day. Okay, next one up there. So here's an example of a plant that's also a food. This is plantain. Again, it grows everywhere. It grows like a weed. And there's like the round ones up like that, and then there's the thin-leaved ones. So in the spring when they come up, they're very tasty. You can have them in your salad. In fact, I actually just planted some plantain, which most people wouldn't do, but I thought, you know what, this is an awesome little plant. Again, antimicrobial, stops bleeding, stabilizes wounds. It stabilizes wounds, guys. It stabilizes wounds. It's so cool. Think about a time when you might not have a Band-Aid on you. Just grab some plantain. Boom. Hang on a sec. Prevents infection. So if you are wounded, it guards against that getting infected. And again, this is one you use as a spit poultice. So if you chew it up in your mouth, put it on the wound, it actually can take, like if you get stung by a bee, it can actually take the venom out. It can take, I've never tried on splinters, but it says it can. Did you try that? Okay, so Lillian's saying you can do that. Okay, so this is gross, but it can take, you pus from your boils or abscesses. It draws out the venom from a bee sting. And again, you can gargle with it, and it's really, really good for your digestive tract and allergies. So incredible little plant. And so if you eat it like lettuce, it's going to help you in all these ways. And that's how we build our immune system. That's how we strengthen ourselves before we get sick. Does that make sense? Also, apparently, and I haven't tried this, but you can take the little seeds and you can grind them and make them into flour, but that seems like a lot of work to me because they're tiny. Okay, gumweed. We were down at the beach down here the other day, down at Saratoga and the other one. There's gumweed growing all along the shore. That's that yellow stuff. And the reason it's called gumweed, can you look carefully? You can see that white stuff there? That's actually like a resinous sap. And this stuff, it also benefits your lungs, your bronchial passages, allergies, chest pain, bronchitis, whooping cough, urinary tract infection, bladder infections, wounds, and ulcers. This one's a bit more work to do, so you can't just hang it upside down, so I tend to not do it, but just so you know it's there. Okay, horsetail. Can you see that there? Noxious weed, right? Once you have horsetail, you are doomed. It is so horrible. And the roots actually can go like 15 feet down. So the positive with that, when you have roots going that deep, they bring up minerals from the earth. So it's actually incredibly nutritious. It's actually one of the few places you can get silica for your hair and your nails. So as much it's a love to hate kind of plant because it's really hard to get rid of. But in the springtime, this is the one you can actually eat. When you get the little shoots coming up, you can actually eat them. But you have to eat them before they get the little side tendrils. So again, if you're going to eat horsetail, don't eat a ton of it. And do it before the side branches come up. And again, just find a picture and you'll know what I mean. It's really good for your connective tissues, for broken bones, for strong hair and nails. Strengthens your kidneys and your bladders, and again, helps with kidney stones and urinary tract infections. Are you guys overwhelmed, or do you want to keep going? Keep going? Okay. Next slide. So these next two are really interesting, and this is something I learned this year. So the first one, the Pacific bleeding heart, that's actually, there's two types of bleeding heart. There's the ones that you have in your garden, and then there's the wild ones. The wild ones are different, and this is not exactly the right picture because I couldn't find one, but again, it's something to look up. Both the Pacific bleeding heart and the California poppy is rare that you can use both those plants, like just use the whole thing. Pull it out, roots and all, flowers, throw it in a teapot. They're both opiates, which is kind of fun, meaning that they dull pain. They're analgesics, right? So Pacific bleeding heart, it's an opiate. It numbs and deadens pain. You can use the whole plant as a tea or tincture. It's good for shock and traumatic event. So that's a pretty important little plant to have in your garden. And like a lot of these you can just plant, right? California poppy, again, an opiate. Again, use the whole plant. It's good for anxiety, for your nervous system, for muscle spasms, for headaches, for toothaches, and for menstrual cramps. So again, an incredibly powerful little poppy, little plant. Burdock, the next one, is actually one of my favorite for many, many reasons. Again, burdock has a really deep root. If you've ever tried to get rid of it, most people hate burdock because the root's like this big, right? Again, it brings up nutrition from deep in the ground, so it's highly nutritious. The root is actually quite large, like think more like a parsnip. And in Japan, they use it like a vegetable. I've used it extensively as a tea, and I like it because it's kind of crunchy, but it's actually a really good tea. Interesting thing about burdock, you know when it sets those little thistly things, and the way it disperses itself is it grabs onto your pants as you walk by, and it goes somewhere else. This little burdock thistle was actually the inventor of Velcro. Took some of this and figured out how to make things stick, right? Let me see what I've got in this. So it is a food source. It has a deep tap root. It's a blood purifier. It's a biennial, so there's a certain time when you harvest it, probably before the second year, I think. It eliminates waste from your kidneys, your liver, your lymphatic system. It also has the inulin. It's a prebiotic, and it feeds your gut flora, which increases immunity. So you know when you take antibiotics, it totally wipes out your gut flora, right? This is a type of plant where you take to restore, kind of like yogurt, you take it to restore your gut flora. Echinacea, coneflower, I think you guys probably all know. It's really good for your immune system. You've probably had echinacea tea. What you probably didn't know is that, of course, it's the root that we use. You can also use the flowers and the leaves, but the root is more powerful. And also, and I didn't know this before either, a rutabaga like coneflower, the brown-eyed Susans, you can use as well, which I didn't know, which is pretty exciting. So plant some coneflowers in your garden, and they will grow over time, so you don't have to go foraging for them. Okay, so that's all I'm going to say on herbs for now. There's millions. There's so many I want to tell you about, but I just want to give you something to hold on to. So my advice about the herbs or the wild medicinals is that you pick 3. Pick 3 and go, okay, I'm going to find this puppy. I'm going to find some burdock. I'm going to find some yarrow, right? And then just learn about them and get to understand them. And then that becomes a part of a tool in your toolkit. And then start hanging them. I want to see your basements covered in upside down plants. Okay, next slide, please. So the next thing I want to talk to you about is about trees. I already told you the drawback about herbs is that at different times of the year, they're just not there. You might not be able to see them at all in the wintertime, and you know you gotta sort of harvest them at specific times. We're surrounded by trees, and every single tree out there has benefits to you. So say, for example, the cedar tree. You know what a cedar tree looks like. It's going to be there in the winter just like it's going to be there in the summer. Many of these trees are, again, good for bronchitis, inflammation of the lungs. And in fact, there was a COVID-19 protocol that came forward about 6 months ago that used pine needle tea as a way to stop the spike protein. So whether you've had COVID, whether you've been exposed to someone who had the vaccine, or whether you've had the vaccine yourself, one of the problems they found is the replication of the spike proteins, and pine needle tea is meant to help. I don't know if it does, but that's the stats, yes? Really good question. The question was, how do you know which one? And I think when it comes to pine trees, they're all going to be very similar. They're not toxic. And the other thing is, another way these trees can save your life is, you know, if you don't have any vegetables for whatever reason, they're full of vitamin C. So you can just put them in tea and you can gain that benefit. So you never have to worry about scurvy. You never have to worry about that sort of thing, because we have they're everywhere, right? So the cedar. Again, acute respiratory issues, urinary tract issues, and you can use it as a tea, or you can steam. So you can put hot water on top of some cedar leaves and just steam it into your lungs. It's good for your kidneys, your urinary tract. It heals some skin conditions and fungal infections. Incredibly powerful. Some of the trees, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, some of the trees you can use their bark. Some of the trees, you use different parts. With the pine, it's usually the needles. The best time to if you actually want to eat this stuff, like if you're really hungry, it's when the young tips are in the spring, right? Those are, you're not going to enjoy eating mature pine needles, but you can eat the tips. Douglas fir, you can make tea out of the bark, and it's really good for your intestinal tract if it's bleeding, for diarrhea, for cuts, for abrasions, for burns. You can also take the pitch and apply it to wounds to keep it clean, so to keep it from being infected. You can also take the pitch and put it in infused oil, and you can use it as a rub. Or, you know, like we use that, what's that, Vicks Vapor Rub. You can do that with Douglas fir pitch. It's good for colds, flus, chest, and sinus congestion, and it also has the vitamin C. So I encourage you to, again, what's in your backyard? Is there a fir tree in your backyard? Is there a pine tree in your backyard? Is there a cedar tree? Figure out which one it is, and then become very knowledgeable on that one tree, because that's the one that's going to help you. Okay? Having said all that, there are a couple plants that are evergreen that are going to help you all year round. Do you want to go to the next one, Chris? Oregon grape. Does anybody know what Oregon grape is? Some of you. Okay. Homework. Go find some Oregon grape. It is everywhere. It's in the shade of the forest. Like, it doesn't grow out in the open. It grows in the undergrowth of the forest. Oregon grape, actually those little blue, incredibly bitter berries, they're actually very medicinal, and they're not poisonous. They taste like they might be poisonous, but they're not. And you can mix them in with huckleberries, whatever. I'm just gonna read this. The roots is what you eat or what you use. And again, you can steep it and boil it and make it into a tea. You can harvest it any time of year. So, you know, summer, fall, whatever. Incredibly powerful. This is probably one of the most potent medicines we have in our forest, is the Oregon grape. It speeds the healing of intestinal infections, your liver, skin, and digestive benefits. It's an antibiotic alkaloid. So it alters the internal mucosa and speeds the removal of waste products in the blood. So it's not an antibiotic, but it's an antibiotic alkaloid, meaning it makes your system unfit for the bacteria to live in. Does that make sense? Like, it doesn't kill the bacteria, it just makes them want to leave. Very inhospitable. It deals with giardia, which is very hard to deal with, staph, salmonella infections. You know, in the hospitals now, I worked in the hospital system for years, and they're finding it harder and harder to fight bacterial infections because all the medicines that they have just don't work anymore. And so they keep going on to different ones. This one's going to work, I guarantee, okay? Because bugs can't become immune to it. It helps with your liver metabolism. It cleanses the blood. It's good for allergies. It's good for constipation, psoriasis, acne, eczema, athlete's foot, ringworm, jock itch, and it stimulates your digestive juices before eating. So again, life-saving. This thing is life-saving. When we both got COVID last November, I was like in the middle of making my album. I was like, there's no way this thing's taking me down. I'm like, nope, not going down. So I just happened to have some Oregon grape in my cupboard. So I brewed up a big pot of it, which I did not feed to my husband. I kept it all for myself. And I got COVID. Yeah. COVID to me was just an irritation. Like I just kept doing my album. I kept going, doing my thing. And Greg was deathly ill. Like he was scary ill. I was like, who is that old guy in my house? Because he looked terrible. Yeah. And so I think the difference was the Oregon grape. Like it made a huge difference.
Poor Greg.
I know. But on the positive side, I broke out in a huge rash because I'm allergic to it. So it all worked out. I was like, oh man, I'm so uncomfortable, but I haven't got COVID. So I may have taken too much, just saying. Do you guys need a stretch wiggle break? Are you okay? Let's take a 30-second wiggle break, okay? Everybody stand up. Roll your shoulders. Yeah, that's right. A little exercise. Oh yeah, looks good. Oh yeah, that's good.
I was just thinking of that comment about the getting polluted by the cars, but we're all going to be driving electric cars soon, so it's not going to be an issue.
Okay, awesome. That's great.
And I was also going to ask Leah, you need to talk about the nutrition of crickets. Need to throw that into the...
I'm fundamentally against it, but apparently they're high in protein. But I do like crunchy things. I have to say that. It's all about the crunch.
The other thing is, too, if you guys want to, while you're having your stretch, there's loads of goodies here that the Campbell River group have brought. So maybe this would be a good time to grab a goodie and, while you're stretching. And thank you to the Campbell River group. They brought some really awesome goodies there tonight. I actually did hear that there is a shortage of drugs in the, I think Diane, you mentioned it. A friend of yours is a pharmacist, and there's now a shortage of certain drugs, right? So this is really timely, this talk tonight.
Oh, awesome. I'm happy to answer questions afterwards. Depends on the plant. Good question. Oregon grape. It's the root. Yeah, you can eat the berries. Yeah. Okay. Hey, guy. Yeah, that is better actually. Thank you. Yeah, the crunch of the cake. That's what. Palm free. I don't have it, but I can talk about it. Yeah. Okay, guys, I'm going to keep talking because I'm really mindful of time. So if you want to grab a muffin and get back to your seat, I'm just going to keep talking, okay? I shouldn't have let them up. Right? I know. Okay. Okay, guys, I'm going to get started again. Can you guys take a seat? Sorry? Okay. Okay, so I want to talk about foraging. You guys are foraging already. I see that. Okay. So when you look at the foods that are available in the wild, you know the obvious. There's deer, there's seaweed, there's mussels, there's clams, there's bunnies, there's all those things. So we're not going to talk about that. But the question is, what plants can you eat? Now, the one thing you really need to be aware of is that in the wild, there's not that many carbohydrates. And you're not going to go out and find wild potatoes, right? Wild yams. You're not going to find that stuff here. So there's very few sort of carbohydrate-rich stuff. The First Nations mainly ate a lot of, the berries and the plants and then the proteins. But I do want to mention sunchokes. Do you guys know what sunchokes are? Sunchokes are a very strange little plant. They look like sunflowers, and they have little potato-like roots. They're actually quite good. They make you fart, I'm just saying. But unlike potatoes, they are perennials, and they'll come back, and they will come back, and they will come back. They will spread, they will become a weed. But if you want a carbohydrate source, and you can contain them, really worth growing and getting to use. And we just rub them off, cut them in half and bake them. Really, really important food source if you're looking for carbs, okay? So I told you about this book here. 120 plants, and if you look at them, there's at least 30 that are berries. I said over 26, but I think it's closer to 30. So we are rich, 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 rich in berries. Now again, there's no mangoes or papayas hanging out there, but amazing amount of berries. Probably all the berries you think are poisonous are not, but do check. And the really interesting thing is that once you recognize the berries, okay, how many berries do you guys recognize? There's blackberries, salmon, huckle, thimble, salal, Oregon grape. She was listening, that's good. Okay, so at least 6 that you recognize. Now what's really, really, really interesting is when you get home, pick one of them, like thimbleberries or huckleberries, or raspberries, or strawberries. And you will find that their leaves are almost as medicinal as the berries. And so, again, I don't want you to run out and think you have to go find 120 plants. You do not. If you've got raspberries in your garden, harvest the leaves and make them into tea. And same with strawberries. And again, just look up their benefits. They are astounding. I didn't know that. What's the warning on raspberry leaves? They are astringent. My understanding was that was helping to tone the uterus for delivery, no? They are strong astringent, and same with raspberries and thimbleberries. They're very similar. So do the research for yourself, and all of these things. I don't know that any of them have been tested for pregnancy, so just be careful, be wise. I just want to read you the benefits of strawberry leaves. So again, it's all about the uterine tissue. It helps with diarrhea. It helps with urinary tract infections. It decreases your stomach acidity. It's good for sore throats. Like, who knew that you could make strawberry leaf tea and gargle it for a sore throat? Did you know that? Say that again. Awesome. We have a strawberry leaf eater in the crowd. You can also clean your teeth with strawberries and then with baking soda. I want to read you, and I'm going to go through this really fast. I'm almost done. Thin leaf huckleberry. I want to read you this. Again, urinary tract infections, bladder. It moderates your blood sugar. It benefits your eyes. It increases night vision. It helps with age-related eye conditions. It helps with computer eye strain. It decreases cancer. It's beneficial to blood vessels, like it decreases your plaque and your artery inflammation, diarrhea and swollen gums. That's huckleberry leaves. So get really excited. Like, there is a medicinal pharmacy right around you. Okay, moving on. So again, pick 5 berries, pick 3 berries, understand they're really good for you. Learn about their leaves because you know where the berries are. Really quickly, seaweed. There's many different types of seaweed, and that's a really good idea because it is readily available. It's right out there. There are complications because the oceans are filled with all kinds of stuff, and it is like that with anything, right? So I wouldn't eat a ton of seaweed, but I think it's a good thing to eat. When we were praying about what to say today, there was 2 messages we got. Number 1 is iodine. So I was saying, we were asking in prayer, like, Lord, what should we talk about? What should I highlight? What's really important? And he said iodine. So there's 2 types of iodine, right? There's a type of iodine that you use to clean wounds. That's not the one. But iodine comes from seaweed too, right? So I would just encourage you to look into that. And the reason iodine is because when you have nuclear fallout, what happens is the radiation is attracted to your thyroid gland, and it can kill you through your thyroid gland. But if you take iodine, the iodine binds to the thyroid receptors. Okay, I don't know enough about it, but that's the basic. So I know they're giving out iodine tablets now in the Ukraine. It's something to look into. Don't panic, but do look into it because it's a thing. Okay, a couple more things. Somebody asked about comfrey. Comfrey is one of the most amazing plants in your garden, and again has a long taproot, so it's full of nutrition. You can use it as a mulch, or you can use it in your compost. You can feed it to your rabbits. For years, it's called knitbone. That's his nickname is knitbone because it has such strong, powerful components in it that if you sprain or you break an arm and then you set it and then you wrap it in comfrey, and it actually helps speed up the healing of fractures and bones. The only there's two issues about comfrey. One is it's such an incredibly fast healer that if you have a deep wound and you put comfrey on top, what's going to happen is it's going to heal the top part of your wound, and you'll still have the inner part not healed. So that's one of the complications with that. So surface wounds, just incredibly, it's an incredibly powerful herb. Recently, I would say 10 years ago, they started putting warnings on comfrey. They say, again, it's got some alkaloids in it and some bad things. I can't remember the name of it. So they said, do not take it internally. People have been taking comfrey internally for thousands of years. I nip into the comfrey every now and then, but I don't actually know. I don't know the truth behind that. I don't know how serious it is. So I would never say to you, for legal reasons, please go drink comfrey tea because you could sue me or something. But look into it for yourself. It's really worth growing in the garden. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, come on up.
Exactly. Thank you.
So
And she healed.
I'm going to just say that we're going to have to address the questions to Leah after. We really need to get Elena up here. We want Leah to finish her presentation because there's so much good information here. If you have questions, then just stick around and talk to Leah one-on-one.
Sorry about that. I was getting too relaxed. I'm sorry, Elena. I'm wrapping now. But yes, if you guys didn't hear that, basically, and that's basically my position too, is how many people die of injections, how many people die of medical mismanagement, how many... Was it 200,000 people die a year of aspirin? Like some crazy thing, and that's just aspirin. So that's my feeling on comfrey as well. Yeah, okay. You know what? I'm going to wrap. There's so much more to say, but I would buy the book. It's not my book, but buy the book. I will do this again because I have more to say. Anyway, sorry, Elena, I took too long, but thank you, and I'm happy to answer questions afterwards. God bless you. Okay.